The self-confessed drug dealer Kerwin Espinosa recanting all his previous claims against detained Senator Leila de Lima, saying the claims were just a result of, quote, pressure, coercion, intimidation, and serious threats to his life and family. Amor Santos joins us live to help us make sense of this. Amor, what else do we know about this case?
Well, Pia, in a counter affidavit filed at the DOJ this morning, Kerwin Espinosa said there's no truth to all the claims he previously made against Senator Leila de Lima. His lawyer, Raymond Palad, confirmed to CNN Philippines that the document was submitted to the DOJ this morning and that Espinosa himself appeared online to confirm his signature this afternoon. Espinosa said he was quote-unquote coerced, pressured, intimidated, and seriously threatened by the police to implicate de Lima in the illegal drug trade and that he made the stories up out of fear for his life and the safety of his family. During congressional hearings on the killing of his father, Mayor Rolando Espinosa, in 2016, the younger Espinosa said he gave more than 8 million pesos in drug money to de Lima through her driver, Ronnie Dayan. It was supposedly for de Lima's senatorial campaign. But in his latest counter affidavit, Espinosa said he had no dealings with the senator and never gave her any money. He even apologized to de Lima for his false testimony. Espinosa is detained at Camp Bagong Diwa facing his own drug cases. His lawyer said his transfer there from the Witness Protection Program following his alleged attempt to escape gave him the courage to tell the truth.
Ever since na ma-cover siya ng WPD, ang presumption niya is that if you're a witness for the government, you will be utilized as a witness and the cases filed against you will be dropped. No? Yun ang condition yan eh. But from the time na maging maipasok siya sa WPD, never siya nag-testify or was utilized as a witness for the government. No cases were dropped and continuously the government files case against him, tuloy-tuloy. Nung wala na siya sa jurisdiction ng NBI, ang sabi niya sa akin, sige attorney, gawin mo na yung counter affidavit. Kasi nga, mas secure siya feeling niya sa DJMP.
Charges against him. Back to you.
Amor.
But for the camp of Senator de Lima, his lawyer, attorney Filibon Tacardon, said it only proves that the Duterte administration fabricated the testimonies against de Lima, and the de Lima camp is also hoping other witnesses will tell the truth and name those who coerced them to testify against the senator. Of course, Malacanang has been saying that the justice system works and there's evidence against de Lima. That's why she was incarcerated. Pia?
Amor Santos there reporting. In the end, the truth will still come out. These are words from Senator Leila de Lima's lawyer reacting to this major development. Attorney Filibon Tacardon saying Kerwin Espinosa's affidavit, quote, only proves the length the current administration has gone to fabricate testimonies and evidence against the senator. Tacardon also hopes other witnesses will come forward and confess how they were pushed into making false testimonies and naming those who actively participated in coercing them. For vice presidential candidate Senator Kiko Pangilinan, he says it is high time to set de Lima free, especially after Espinosa backtracked on his allegations. De Lima has been detained since 2017. He is seeking re-election under the Robredo Pangilinan slate. 2 months before he steps down from office, President Duterte admits he was wrong to believe he could end the illegal drug trade in 3 to 6 months. This is one of his campaign promises. Acting presidential spokesperson Martin Andanara says Mr. Duterte did not know the depth and complexity of the drug problem when he ran in 2016. Here's the president in his own words.
It was campaign time. Payabangan naman yung kampanya. Pagdating ko sa Manila, dala ko yung chief of police ko, yung si Bato, yung binuksan na yung records. Paano ako 6 generals of the PNP were playing with drugs. Sabi ko, paano tayo mabubuhay nito? Ang pulis, imbes magtrabaho, nabibigyan rin. So it corrupts it destroys the fabric of society. Over time,
The chief executive urged rebels engaged in drug trafficking to back down. Health workers have identified more close contacts of the country's first case of the Omicron subvariant BA.2.12. With this new subvariant, health experts say the more people need to get their COVID-19 booster shots. Carolyn Bonkin reports.
The 52-year-old Finnish national arrived in the country on April 2nd without COVID-19 symptoms, but 9 days later, she experienced a headache and sore throat. On April 11th, she tested positive for COVID-19 with the Omicron subvariant BA.2.12. Health authorities found 44 close contacts, including those she interacted with in seminars in Quezon City and Benguet, as well as her co-passengers on the plane. 2 of these contacts were tested and both were negative for COVID. Another one in Quezon City has scratchy throat, but it's not yet clear if that person got tested.
We are considering the 14 days incubation period. What we are doing right now is closely monitoring and trying to do sequencing also among these individuals na nandun po sa mga nakasalamuhan.
DOH is still unsure if she got infected in Finland on the plane or here in the Philippines. Health authorities not discounting BA.2.12 is already in the community.
The possibility is there. We know the limitations of our testing. We know the limitations of our sequencing.
BA.2.12 is an offshoot of the Omicron variant, but Vergere coding study says while it causes less severe infection, this subvariant is 2.5 times more transmissible than Omicron, which was earlier considered as the most transmissible variant. Infectious disease specialist Jean Solante says getting a booster shot is more important now than ever. Like Omicron, BA.2.12 diminishes the effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccine.
Because of that, the risk of more people that will be getting the infection will always be higher compared to the previous variants of concern.
When combined with super spreader events this summer and election season, the country might be looking at another surge in cases.
That's why we have to constantly monitor uptick of cases. We strictly follow the health protocol at all times, even especially with this coming election. Pa-booster na tayo dahil meron ng threat for a sub-variant.
So far, majority of the samples checked for variants in the country have Omicron. Carolyn Bonkin, CNN Philippines.
4 people were killed after an old steel bridge, the Clarin Bridge, collapsed in Loay town in Bohol. A dozen vehicles fell into the Lobok River on Wednesday afternoon. 23 persons were rescued. Half of the vehicles were retrieved. Bohol Governor Arthur Yap says assistance will be given to the victims. Officials are also seeking an investigation into the incident. Coming right up, a fresh COVID-19 surge poses a threat to the country with just days before the Filipino votes. What steps is the COMELEC taking to address this? And this Filipino basketball star is taking one step closer to realizing his dreams. More about Kai Soto's entry into the NBA rookie draft when we come back.
What makes a nation grow? Every day we see them, the providers, the traders,
Welcome back. The Commission on Elections insists there are safeguards to protect over 65 million Filipino voters amid the threat of another COVID surge ahead of May 9. Melissa Lopez reports.
COMELEC stands firm. The May 9 polls will proceed as scheduled despite the threat of a fresh surge in COVID-19 infections.
Sigurado po tayo, suspension is not an option.
We have contingency measures. So, kung yung mga may spike, the Committee on New Normal has prepared on how to respond to that. Kahit anong mangyari, we will have an elections. Laban kung laban.
This reassurance came a day after health officials detected the first case of the Omicron subvariant BA.2.12 from a Finnish woman who visited Quezon City and Baguio City and then left for abroad. Contact tracing is underway. Commissioner Ray Bulay says the 1987 Constitution mandates the poll body to hold the elections specifically on the second Monday of May. In fact, the poll body formally asked President Rodrigo Duterte to declare May 9th as a non-working holiday to encourage registered voters to cast their ballots. COMELEC earlier signed a multi-agency deal with DOH, DILG, DepEd, and DND to ensure that health protocols will be enforced on voting day. Masks are a must for all voters, and physical distancing must be followed at all times inside a voting center. For areas that remain under alert levels 4 and 5, face shields are mandatory. The DOH earlier suggested time limits for voters to keep areas from overcrowding. Despite the Omicron subvariant detection and the huge campaign crowds in the past few weeks, COMELEC says strict implementation of the protocols should keep election events from becoming super spreaders. Other last-minute preparations are underway. Ballot boxes and transmission devices have been fully dispatched. Half of all ballots were deployed, while nearly all of over 106,000 vote-counting machines have already been farmed out to local hubs. Defective ballots are set to be shredded on May 7th, while the media transparency server for tallied votes is being readied at the UST Quad Arena. It's all systems go as far as COMELEC is concerned. Melissa Lopez, CNN Philippines.
Former Senator Bongbong Marcos is not participating in COMELEC's presidential panel interview. His spokesperson, Vic Rodriguez, says Marcos chose to visit supporters and attend to prior commitments instead of taking part in the COMELEC event scheduled for Sunday, May 1st. Marcos skipped the two COMELEC presidential debates. On the other hand, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno says he is open to attending the panel interview if his schedule permits.
Bakit hindi? Ang ano naman natin dyan, kung yung mga commitment, katulad ng nasabi kanina na marami pa tayong probinsyang babalikan at pupuntahan at munisipyo. But if the schedule will allow, yes, of course, I'll be happy to join. Nag-a-apply ako sa trabaho. Ang nag-a-apply sa trabaho, hindi naman namimili kung paano siya i-interviewin ng kanyang future employer.
COMELEC was supposed to hold its presidential and vice presidential town hall debates this weekend, but canceled them because of conflicting schedules of candidates. Well, the campaign heats up with only 11 days left until the Filipino votes. Supporters of Bongbong Marcos and Vice President Leni Robredo face off in a shopping mall in Makati City. Security guards tried to defuse the situation, but passionate supporters in red and pink kept jeering at each other. Marcos met with nearly a dozen governors, including the governors of Benguet, Cavite, and Laguna. His campaign says they discussed efforts to protect votes. Isko Moreno, who is in the city of Bacolod, brushes off charges filed against him in connection with the sale of the Divisoria Public Market in Manila. He and 5 other Manila officials are facing a graft case before the Office of the Ombudsman after the popular flea market was sold to a private company.
Naman yung mga traditional politician. Alam ng tao yun. Alam ng tao yun. Basang-basa sa Maynila yun. Hindi nila matutulongges yung mga taga-Maynila. And I wish them good luck. Matatanda na sila. Alam na nila ang tama at mali. Katatapos lang na Semana Santa. Ano sabi ni Jesus? Ama, patawarin mo sila. Hindi nila alam ang kanilang ginagawa.
Senator Ping Lacson plans to collect the Marcos family's unpaid estate taxes that has since ballooned to 203 billion pesos if he wins the presidency.
Siguro kung lumabas yan panahon ng mga ibang presidente, baka siningil na yan. No? Hindi na sana umabot ng 203 billion. So that should be collected because that should be government's funds, ano? Dahil tax collection yan.
Senator Manny Pacquiao wants to appoint businessman Mimo Osmeña as finance secretary if he wins. Osmeña is the president of MRC Allied Industries. He's also the son of former Cebu Governor Lito Osmeña. Pacquiao earlier said his campaign manager, mining magnate Buddy Zamora, will lead his economic team. The retired boxer is campaigning in Leyte, the home province of former First Lady Imelda Marcos, the mother of his rival, Bongbong. Well, how is Isko Moreno coping day-to-day in his campaign? What has he learned so far? And was running for president worth it despite being a shoo-in for re-election as Manila mayor? CNN Philippines spoke to Moreno in private as part of its exclusive one-on-one series with presidential candidates. Paulo Barcelon with the highlights.
Despite multiple shifts of support from his home base, presidential candidate Isko Moreno Domagoso is grateful for people supporting him from the beginning. He said his happiest moments are seeing supporters in the streets and in rallies.
Ang nakakatuwa lang sa kabilang banda, whether umuulan or kasagsagan ng araw, people are going out of their houses when we're in their area.
But this 47-year-old candidate recognizes how hard campaigning can be. He's conquering fear of heights in instances where he flies to reach remote areas. He says he only gets a maximum of 3 to 4 hours of sleep a day. And despite his family going all out in support of him, it's their company of his wife Daini and his children Patrick, Frances, Joaquin, Franco, and Drake that he longs for the most.
Parang cabinet na lang yung bahay. There you go. Then repeal yung maliit na maleta kasi 2 days ka rito, 3 days ka doon.
In a one-on-one interview, Moreno was asked about his campaign funds that sparked controversy when he admitted keeping 50 million pesos worth of excess campaign donations in the 2016 elections.
At this time, feeling ko walang excess fund. Ay, mukha. If and there is no law, at may sumobra, babayad ako ng buwis.
Like what you did the last time?
Of course.
All right.
If elected, he promises to emulate his personality as a Manila mayor by working round the clock. He says a Domagoso administration will be politically colorblind in making appointments and that he will also have a slot for 2 of his closest allies.
Doc Willie is one.
Okay, give me two more.
Basta, yung 2 more kasi nandun sa kabilang dako. I don't want to create animosities within their group. But I do believe in that guy. Saka yung babae na yun.
Polito Banaya, where would you put him?
Oh, he'll be in Malacanang, definitely.
As well.
Closer to me. I need wise
Executive
people.
Secretary, ganon?
It can be, but it's closer to me.
For the final question, Domagoso had to answer if his decision to run for the presidency was worth it.
At least ngayon, masasabi ko sa'yo, I had a very good decision in running. Tama pala na tumakbo ako ng pagka-presidente. Unang nakikita ko, para bang yung assessment ko, hindi makakamove on ang bansa natin sa mga bagay na dapat natin ginagawa para sa kabutihan ng tao at ng bansa. Kung ang mangingibabaw sa atin, puro higantihan na lang.
Paulo Barcelon, CNN Philippines.
CNN Philippines also sat down with presidential hopeful Senator Manny Pacquiao as we help the Filipino voters choose their candidate in the run-up to Decision Day. We asked Pacquiao if he got a sign from God on whether or not he will continue his fight for the presidency.
Yung sinasabing sign ay mas pinatibay pa ng Panginoon yung paniniwala ko. Pinatibay pa ng Panginoon yung paniniwala ko na tuloy ang laban para ito sa for God and country ito. Yan ang nakikita ko, kaya tuloy ang laban.
Catch senior anchor Rico Hizon's in private conversation with Manny Pacquiao tonight at 8, only here on CNN Philippines. Imagine driving without having to pay mind to rising fuel prices. This perk, as well as the environmental benefits, has driven the government to encourage using electric cars. Our senior correspondent Lois Calderon reports a large company also stepped up to support the e-vehicle shift.
Gas remains expensive, and it's giving the auto industry and motorists a solid reason to go green. Big names like SM Malls are jumping on the clean energy bandwagon. The property giant built charging stations for e-vehicles for free.
We all know that, gasoline prices have shoot up, no? So this is very timely.
It takes 8 hours to fully charge an e-vehicle at the mall's parking lot. That's a lot of electricity. But the mall giant is relying less and less on power from the grid and wants to source half of its energy needs from renewables by year-end. SM's bonus: the mall gets more foot traffic.
You don't have to even wait at the parking lot, no? So they could just go out, dine, shop, watch a movie.
Electric vehicles are nice to have and are ideal, but they are not cheap if manufacturers cannot produce in volumes that cut production costs. To date, there's just a little over 12,000 electric vehicles on Philippine roads. They're not even cars, but you see them in places like Boracay Island, which bans other diesel-powered public transport.
E-jeepney, e-tricycle, so meron na tayong ganoon. Pero yung kotse, kailangan pa natin ng manufacturers. And para mangyari yon, kailangan ma-encourage mo muna ng maraming users.
The shift to clean vehicles, however, could gain momentum, and government peddles incentives to get there. The roadmap that charts where the electric vehicle industry should go is ready after President Duterte let a bill lapse into law this week.
Sinama natin siya sa CREATE, yung Strategic Investment Priorities Plan, na entitled sa mga tax incentives, no? At saka lower income tax rate. Tapos we're thinking of giving more incentives yung hindi nagamit sa CARS program. Mag-allocate tayo para masuportahan din yung local manufacturing ng electric vehicle.
Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez was referring to an ambitious program laid down by the Aquino government to boost local car production in a way where local parts suppliers are not left out. Only Toyota and Mitsubishi qualified for those tax breaks on the condition that the two big brands can make 600,000 cars within 6 years. And they have yet to meet the target. Lois Calderon, CNN, Philippines.
Stories ahead, including the latest in the basketball world. One of our kababayans has declared for the NBA rookie draft. Details when we return on Newsnight. Welcome back to Newsnight. Many economies, including our own, have drowned in this pandemic, with tourism leading the way to recovery. How are Filipinos rising to the challenge? Lois Calderon brings us back to El Nido in Palawan for the answers.
El Nido Resort in Miniloc Island recycles wastewater for use in flushing toilets. When the coral garden near the shoreline becomes infested with starfish known as the crown of thorns, the resort's in-house biologists ask locals to help clear the infestation without chemicals.
We have been extracting the predators over long periods of years, okay, in such unhealthy numbers. Now we have this predicament where crown of thorns starfish could infest a reef and annihilate, huge areas of coral reef.
Behind any successful sustainability programs are the locals themselves, but advocates rally support for tourists like you and me. Simple gestures like not feeding the fish with bread, not using single-use plastic water bottles, and not collecting seashells could have an impact that benefits not only this generation.
El Nido gets high praises from the World Travel and Tourism Council, which released a set of global criteria for measuring how hotels and resorts save water, what chemicals are used for linens, and how they reduce carbon emissions, plastic, and other waste.
They might already be ahead of the game, but the point here is not about the hotels that are ahead of the game, though they're already on that journey.
Travel data analytics firm Forward Keys says the Philippines and Singapore are early winners, emerging from a pandemic-driven drought. Rivals like Thailand, Indonesia, and Japan have yet to fully open. With the influx of tourists, it's inevitable that mom-and-pop hotels and resorts, the SMEs, jump on the sustainability bandwagon. El Nido could be that local model for a sustainable blue economy.
I'm feeling great. I'm thinking of starting to work from here, more far in the Philippines.
Lois Calderon, CNN, Philippines.
In sports, Kai Soto is ready to take his talents to the NBA. The athlete has declared for the 2022 rookie draft, fresh from his stint at the Australian National Basketball League. Soto thanked his team, the Adelaide 36ers. Now here at home, the UAAP Final Four cast slowly taking shape. The NU Bulldogs keep their semi-final hopes alive, beating the still winless UE Red Warriors 100-81 today. The De La Salle Green Archers have reason to celebrate, with the squad entering the Final Four. La Salle defeated Adamson 64-51. And the Ateneo Blue Eagles, just one win away from an outright final slot. They kept their unblemished record by beating the FEU Tamaraws 70-53. FEU, NU, and Adamson now tied for fourth place. Sunday's games at the Mall of Asia Arena may determine the final four teams. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
This program is brought to you by
This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not.
The latest Lilo survey for March puts Bongbong Marcos way ahead of the pack with 61% voter preference. Denny Robredo has 19%, Isko Moreno 9%, Manny Pacquiao 6%, Ping Lacson 2%. The numbers taken from the March 15 to 22 survey, 3,000 respondents, plus minus 2% margin of error. Robredo showed up at debates and colored so many areas all over pink with upbeat rallies, picking up a few endorsements here and there. Moreno hanging in there, believing he still has a fighting chance. Pacquiao saying on Monday only God can instruct him to withdraw from the race. And Lacson, orphaned by a major Mindanao politician, choosing to resign from his own party, announcing a change in his campaign tagline. And Marcos, well, what else is there to say? Consistent survey frontrunner. Debate skipper with a few exceptions, and just today, an endorsement from the Nacionalista Party, Manny Villar, father of one of his senatorial candidates. The juggernaut Marcos Duterte tandem looks so formidable. What else is there to do for those who want to defeat them? A vice presidential candidate suggested a last-ditch effort.
We should start talking. Nobody among us can defeat Sara among the VPs, and nobody among the presidential candidate can defeat Bongbong Marcos if we do not start talking now and come up with a single slate, a single tandem para one-on-one to defeat Marcos and Sara Duterte. Sino ba yung third most powerful person now? Kahit naman tingnan nyo dun sa survey, I don't mind supporting Senator Soto, no? And I don't mind supporting Lenny Robredo, if that is the case.
Will that be enough 40 or so days before the Filipino votes? Good evening, I'm Pia Ontiveros. Welcome to your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. We begin tonight with Vice Presidential candidate Rizalito David joining us here in the studio, together with analyst Richard Hedarian, who will sit throughout the whole show. So, Lito, David, that proposal of yours, when you said that a few weeks ago, had you already spoken to anyone before you opened your mouth the debate venue?
Actually, hindi. Pero yung sinabi ko nung Sunday, may nauna na akong press conference na ginawa noon eh. Pero hindi pinikap masyado yung proposal na yon. Iba yung inilabas na material, no? But nung ano
At
kasi...
iba yung effect nito eh.
Oo.
Yung
Kasi ito ano... Anyway, nung yung footage kanina, that was before I went into the venue, no? So, nung nagdatingan yung ibang kandidato, in-interview na rin sila doon tungkol doon sa proposal ko. So, pagdating namin doon sa loob, kinausap ko naman sila isa-isa eh. Mali, with the exception of Kiko. Na
Why
hindi
with
ko
the
nakita.
exception of Kiko?
Hindi ko nakita eh.
Okay.
Pinuntahan ko sa mga cubicle eh.
Okay.
Even si Senator Soto, ganyan,
Okay.
no? Sina Walden, si Manny.
Ano sinasabi nila lahat?
Well, open naman sila to discuss. Open to discuss these things. Kaya lang, ang problema dyan, hindi lang pwede na kaming mga vice presidents. Dapat talaga yung yung buo, no, kasama yung ulo ng bawat partido. So nung inilabas ko yung sa final statement, alam na nila 'yon. Alam na nila na although hindi ko sinasabi na yun yung magiging final statement ko. And then even after that, I went to see some of them again. Okay ba? Pag-usapan natin.
Ano sabi?
Okay.
Okay.
Ang hinahanap ko ngayon yung magpa-facilitate. Kasi alam mo, hindi naman basta-basta yan na magsasama-sama lang kami.
Yeah.
Alam mo naman sa politika, ma'am, medyo syempre, what's in it for me? No? Para dun sa iba. No? So, yung nitty-gritty nitong Grand Coalition na aking proposal, medyo matagal yung proseso nun. Pero in principle, dapat nag-a-agree na kami ngayon na isa na lang ang kandidato ng for Vice President ng non-administration candidates, tsaka isa na lang para sa Presidente for non-administration candidates. So, ang mangyayari niya, in fact, ang sinasabi ko nun, sana yung last na magiging debate ng kandidato na sponsored ng COMELEC, one-on-one na, no? So, kumbaga, Bongbong against who, no? Sara against who.
Kung pupunta sila.
Hindi, mas maganda kung hindi sila pumunta.
Hindi, monolog na lang. Okay.
They will lose by default, no?
Oo.
Ang kagandahan nito kasi, wala naman ako sinasabing mag-withdraw yung mga kandidato eh. Ang sinasabi ko, continue on campaigning, but campaigning for the person that we chose. And then, siguro dun sa final 2 weeks, we'll have 3 or 4 grand rallies na lahat ng kandidato for president at lahat ng kandidato for vice president supporting yung dalawa, no? Nando doon, no? Iba yung impact noon sa taong bayan. Pag nakita yon, bakit nga ganyan, no? So matatabunan lahat yung mga naunang projections eh.
Oo. Yeah, a while ago, Lito, you said na ang hinahanap ko yung may mag-facilitate but you've been talking to them. So are there any totoong nag-uusap na talaga kayo, mga VP?
Yes, meron naman pag-uusap. Kaya lang, yung magpa-facilitate ang importante dahil kailangan merong semblance ng kumbaga pagiging fair nung
Someone impartial. So, sino yon? Who are you looking for?
Well,
And is it going to happen? It's March 29.
It has to come from the faith-based leadership.
Faith-based leadership, meaning?
Posibleng CBCP. No? I think yun lang naman ang pinakamaganda talaga. No? Not exactly yung high up in the hierarchy of the clergy. Possibly sa level ng mga executive directors ng mga commissions, no? Para hindi rin naman makakompromise ang CBCP kasi hindi naman talaga dapat. No?
Dito, what you're saying tonight is that there are serious talks among the VP contenders, all 9 of you, so that without anyone withdrawing, 8 of you will support that one candidate will be your common candidate. That's what you're saying?
Yes, I'm hoping na ganun yung mangyayari.
Okay. Richard, what do you think of this? Is this going to be the solution, kumbaga, no? Because the reason for this proposal by Lito David is, to defeat this BBM Sara impending victory.
I mean, that's why sinasabi ko dati pa na kailangan natin ng runoff elections, di ba? I mean, that's the whole point of runoff elections. Had countries like Peru or Chile, if they didn't have runoff elections, they would have a radically different leadership right now. It could have been the daughter of former dictator Fujimori. It could have been a pro-Pinochet guy. So, because wala tayong history of runoff elections, and for me, I don't know about the geniuses who came up with our constitution, but why no one thought about it, we don't have this culture of real coalition building, which is really a give and take, which is really a matter of faith. No, it's a matter of conviction thing. Good luck getting that in the middle of a game, right? They should have done it. Kaya nga may one sambayan proposal in the past. That's why there were some discussions between the Isko camp and Pacquiao camp and Lenny camp, etc. But eventually it petered out. And then you had Senator Lacson saying a few months ago, well, let's just go all in the game and later on we figure it out.
He said that.
Yeah,
no?
exactly.
If for those who are lagging in the surveys, then let's bow
and
out.
I think
but
now is the time. But
Okay.
my point is, in the meantime, the other side sorted it out. I think the moment that Sara Duterte and Bongbong Marcos decided on who will be the standard bearer for the administration, the game radically changed. Because I had both Sara and Bongbong run, we would have been a completely different picture.
Yes,
I would have even doubted Bongbong Marcos running for the presidency had Sara decided to move forward, right? So Bongbong Marcos was 13% in the second quarter of last year. He jumped to 53%. A lot of that is the Sara Duterte numbers, plus some multiplier effect and all. So this is the telltale of our situation. The opposition, the first ones to talk about unity, up until now, hindi sila
Not
unified.
united.
The ones that we thought will be really head-to-head, meaning the House of Duterte and House of Marcos, now both of them were sensing it. They could stay in the game. Eventually, they had the middle persons, whether it's President Arroyo, whether it's the Romualdeses, who worked it out. And now we are seeing it. The chickens are coming home to roost for the opposition. They didn't do their assignments. They're waiting for the last minute, 11th hour. And ito nga rin yung sinasasabihin ko kung ikaw yung voter, nakaka-confuse naman lahat kayo nandyan, wala nagbaback out. And ito pang sasabihin ko it's possible na kung magbaback out yung ibang candidates, the numbers actually go to Bongbong Marcos. That it will further fit, he could reach 70% even, if we look at his second preference numbers.
And then that is the argument that some of the candidates would use, na parang, paano yung kung mag-back out ako, baka kay
That
BBM
is
lang
why
yung mapunta.
you
So
have
that's
to
why
openly endorse the other candidate. Hindi pwedeng mag-back out now. Talaga you have to openly endorse. Kaya nga, agree ako kay Sir David na, I mean, they have to come out and really support. Hindi lang ayaw ko na sa laban na to at mag-walk out na ako. But I mean, for me, there's no such thing as April surprise in the Philippines. It's more like March surprise, right? Hindi
but
tayo
March
katulad ng
surprise,
US.
it's March 29. There's only 2 days
That's
left
what
to
I'm
go
saying.
for this
So
month.
if there was going to be big alignments, realignments, ito na yan, second half of March. In fairness naman, we see some interesting discussions in Mindanao, for instance. We see some of the supposed supporters of President Duterte actually backing Leni Robredo. Sa akin, ang mga politiko, they got gamay nila yung pulso ng tao eh. Basa nila eh. Sometimes they're even better than us social scientists or mga people are doing surveys. So that's why I'm really wondering, maybe there's something they know and I don't know. Kaya hinahabol ko talaga lalo yung sa mga Mindanao politics and all. So there is a fluidity, but I think the window is really closing. I think April is too late because if maalala po natin yung elections before, April is the consolidation time.
Right,
Remember, that's when they had all of these expose against Duterte and all. It backfired. Duterte's numbers even went higher. So for me, we are already in that, the window is closing.
Well, Lito brought this up 2-3 weeks ago, hindi ba? And then,
Exactly.
it's just, going so slowly, nothing's happening, I mean...
Sleepwalking into disaster ang fear ng iba siguro dito. Yeah.
Tiptoeing through the tulips. So the window's closing, it's, like I was saying kanina, it's March 29 today. 31 is 2 days away.
Yeah.
April, mag-Holy Week pa. O, paano na?
Ako, sorry, sir, for cutting in. For me, the game here is not just beating Marcos for the opposition, but the margins matter. I think a Marcos who wins 40% will be different from Marcos who wins 70%. Yung sense of confidence, sense of mission will be very, very different if he becomes the first majority-based president in recent memory since the surveys were. I think Bongbong Marcos, we could see a much more aggressive and assertive side as opposed to, let's say, a 40% a plurality-based Marcos. I think margin matters. And I think the performance of the opposition matters kasi magiging yung impact niya sa mga support base. If they lose bad, baka madidismaya yung mga supporters nila. But if they lose a little bit close, baka the opposition can still remain a bit coherent and important force after the elections. Kaya for me, at some point, Plan B will be margins game. If it's not a victory game, it should be a margins game. This is realpolitik. We are where we are, and I think the opposition has to ask some very tough questions and look at really some serious Plan Bs there if they're not going to do the consolidation right on time. And I think window is closing very fast.
So if they don't, you're saying that if they don't unite the opposition at this point in time, they can kiss any hopes of victory goodbye. Na talaga. And like you're saying, Plan B na lang, margins na lang pinag-uusapan.
Yeah,
That's it.
But margins matter too for me.
No, but do you think there is that sense that they do want to win, or they want to defeat BBM? Because even Lenny herself has said before, di ba? She's going to run if BBM's running for president. And then I asked her before, late last year, on an interview, I said, do you want him disqualified or do you want to slug it out with him in an election? I would rather defeat him in an election. So there's that mindset eh.
Okay, Sir David, maybe you want to pitch in because you were one of the guys involved here. And then I'll come in.
Hindi, ano lang naman. Sa akin, bottom line talaga talunan si Marcos. For people like us, no, yung generation ko, nangapital kami. Kumbaga, we risk our lives fighting the dictatorship then. So hindi ito punto lang ng politika. Meron akong pinaguhugutan dito eh. Ayoko maging presidente si Marcos kasi maraming beses kaming muntik nang namatay nung panahon na estudyante kami, no? Marami akong mga kaibigan na pinatay. No, yung mga 18 years old, no, yung torturein bago papatayin, ganun, no? So sa akin, kaya ko tinutulak talaga ito, no? Hindi ito dalang ano lang politika lang eh, no? I think a lot of the people na who belong to my generation, ganun din ang feeling. Kaya iba yung mangyayari kung magsasama-sama kami, mas malaki yung magiging suporta. Plus, ang hindi natin tinitignan. Matagal nang hindi gumagalaw ang simbahan. Okay? Baka yung problema natin na baka hindi umabot, pwede pa rin umabot kung lahat ng mga pari, no, lahat ng mga madre, lahat ng mga obispo ay sasali diyan, hindi lang Catholic Church, no, posibleng ibang simbahan. Meron panlaban, meron pa. Kasi merong mga hinanakit din yung mga yan nung panahon ng martial law eh. Kaya yun yung mga obispo ngayon, yun yung time na sila yung nandoon, yung mga paring bata noon. Yun yung mga kasama namin noon eh.
Okay. Lito David and Richard Darian, you're still going to stay with us until the end of the show. We're going to talk, when we come back, we're going to talk realignments on the local level and so many other things. Ang dami kasing nangyayari sabay-sabay. We'll be back after a quick break. Stay tuned. This is Politics as Usual. Welcome back to Politics as Usual. A long time ago, the 1998 elections to be exact, and yes, that is a very long time ago for this generation, a party was formed to serve as a vehicle for Renato de Villa to run for president shortly after he lost out to Joe de Venecia for the administration party's standard bearer possibility. De Villa, at that time, Defense Secretary and Armed Forces Chief of Staff before that, in the administration of Fidel Ramos, people thought could do an FVR. Ramos ran and won in 92, by the way, largely on his EDSA 1986 image and solid track record as Cory Aquino's Chief of Staff and Defense Secretary. Fast forward to 2021, Ping Lacson joins Reforma and becomes its chairman. The party president is Bebot Alvarez, who was once Speaker of the House, only to be ousted in a coup so ably supported by Sara Duterte. Well, just last Thursday, Partido Reforma dumped Ping Lacson in favor of Leni Robredo. So we had the rather awkward scene of Davao del Norte Congressman, erstwhile Leni critic Bebot Alvarez, explaining how they came to the turning point while apologizing to the VP at the same time. So Ping had to resign from the party, saying his campaign is still a go, albeit with a different tagline. Renato de Villa, founder of Partido Reforma, joining us now via Zoom. Secretary de Villa, magandang gabi po sa inyo, and thank you very much for taking the time to be with us.
Magandang gabi sa iyo, Pia, at saka sa iyong mga tagapakinig.
Sir, do you like what's happened to the party that you founded? I mean, you have this perennial smile on your face, pero sa loob, ano ba talaga ang naiisip nyo?
Sa totoo lang, gaya ng sinabi ko sa public statement ko, wala akong kamalay-malay na magkakaganon yung dalawa ni Ping at saka ni Bebot Alvarez, Congressman Alvarez. I knew it only from the announcements in the media or in the internet that Ping Lacson was going to make a public statement regarding the party, and Congressman Alvarez will have a press conference about the matter. So I just waited for it because ang posisyon ko naman, Pia, is almost irrelevant already because Congressman Alvarez is the president of the party and Ping Lacson is the chairman. I am only the chairman emeritus, an honorary position that they gave me as founder.
Okay, well, apart from the fact, like you said, no, you only learned about it through the media. Well, do you like what happened?
Of course, I didn't like what happened, and I don't like what has happened because it's a small party as of now, and it's still trying to get on its feet and get wider support. This has been the work of both of them, but mostly of Bebot Alvarez when he told me that he will establish grassroots members and leaders at the provincial level. So I said, maganda yan, Bebot, para lumaki naman yung partido. Binuhay kasi niya ito eh. Alam mo, Pia, I might as well explain that the party was already deleted after 2004 elections, I think. That was our last participation wherein we fielded Frank Chavez as our senatorial candidate, and I joined, or the party joined with Promdi of Lito Osmeña and Acción Democrático of Raul. And we fielded Raul against GMA. Well, the rest is history. And after that, the party did not participate in any election anymore. Then in 2020, Bebot approached me and asked if he can revive the party. So I said I will check with the others and find out if they still want to revive the party, because Bebot said that and he actually called me also, Secretary Cusi wanted also to revive the party for his own purposes. So Bebot, being an original congressman of the party in 98, and he was the only one asking for it. So when he asked me if he can file the documents for the revival of the party, I gave him the go signal. And so he became the worker of the party for almost 1 year, trying to get it organized at ground level. And then later on, we formalized the organization with Ping Lacson as chairman. We have talked to Ping Lacson also before, together with Bebot, and the two of them were friends, and they agreed to run the party, so to speak.
Well, I guess that's what happens when you lose the speakership of the House. No? You have to go find a party to resurrect. Pero Secretary De Villa, what should Ping Lacson do now? I know you said that you're still going to support him, and he has said that he's still running as an independent at tuloy-tuloy lang ang kampanya. Pero sa totoo lang, ano ba talaga dapat gawin na nila ngayon? Kasi kanina, ang pinag-uusapan namin dito sa studio, together with Lito David, VP candidate, and Richard Hederian, analyst, is how some people need to get their act together and get together if they want to defeat the BBM-Sara tandem.
Yeah, actually, I'm not close to the group that is running the affairs of the party because, as I said, I'm just an honorary chairman now. So, but when I talk to Ping, he is to me he seemed very determined, no matter what happens, to finish the fight, so to speak. Ang sabi nga niya, lalaban tayo hanggang sa dulo. Ngayon, of course,
well,
you
sir,
and I
given
know
the,
that
given the political,
the reality is a little difficult for him right now, but he is not inclined to withdraw, nor he is inclined to affiliate with another party, as far as I know. Maybe there are things that I do not know.
Well, let me ask the question this way, Secretary De Villa. Kayo po, you are a PMA graduate 1957, si Ping Lacson 1971. Among PMAers, you have this way of talking to each other. And among PMAers, there's this cadet lingo. No? For example, meron kayong sinasabi na take life halimbawa, or you know. So if you were going to, have a one-on-one, a man-to-man talk with Ping Lacson, what would you tell him to do now? If you could tell him what to do.
Yeah, go ahead. I will, of course, lay out the way I see the ground right now, and continue to encourage him that we will continue to support him, because there are also many PMAers who are committed to him and are working hard to make him go up in the ladder of the surveys. So there is very little time left, and you and I know that, and that the people seem to be talking only of two sides now. But I think the fight is not over until it is over, so to speak.
Talaga, sir, kahit 2% siya sa Lilo survey.
No.
Yes?
2%.
2%,
and
number 5.
He's not moving up.
No.
But he is, I think he is committed to his followers, and it is difficult. It will be very difficult for him to withdraw and abandon his followers, especially if there are those who are running under his wing. Pia, this is exactly what happened to me in 98. When in April, I was secretly shown a survey that I cannot make it, and I was even advised to withdraw. But I found myself on a very difficult situation in terms of withdrawing, because there are we have in the party then, which was a little bit stronger than now, we had congressional candidates, we have mayors, governors, councilors, and I think if we count all the councilors after the election, I think we have had more than 500 winners down the line. But insofar as the higher level of officials are concerned, we had only, I think, 2 or 3 congressmen. Bebot was one of them. And we had no senators. And but kasi Pia, when you are committed to a group of men, especially if these men are known to you very much and who have been with you in the service, and they are working very hard for you, you cannot simply turn your back and say, bahala na kayo. Hindi kami ganon. Kasi kami, lalo na kung nasa battlefield ka, pag may nasugatan, hindi mo pwedeng iwan, no matter what. Kaya siguro, baka gano'n na nangyayari kay Ping ngayon.
Kaya in the end, si BBM na panalo.
I cannot be a predictor of that, Pia. You know me naman. I'm already retired. I'm on the sidelines.
Okay. Anyway, Secretary Rene De Villa, sir, you're going to be joining us in the last segment of the show. Di ba pumayag po kayo? So babalik na lang po kayo at the end of the show. Okay?
Oh, sige, it's up to you.
Sige.
Okay, I'll be here.
Sige, Secretary Rene De Villa. We're going to a quick break. This is Politics as Usual. Welcome back to Politics as Usual. Lenny Robredo has been picking up some endorsements in the last few weeks. Bebot Alvarez for Davao Norte, as we were talking about earlier. PD Barzaga for Cavite, Juliet Yu of Misamis Oriental, and Lawrence Fortun for Agusan Norte. Let's talk significance. Congressman Lawrence Fortun joining us via Zoom, and still here in the studio with us, VP candidate Vito David and Richard A. Darian, the analyst. And Melvin Matibag is here also. So, teka muna, sinong unahin natin? Okay, wait. Melvin, sandali lang We'll speak first to Lawrence because I wasn't able to read that intro for you. So, we'll talk first to Congressman Fortun. Stand by, Melvin. Okay, so Congressman Fortun. So, why Lenny?
Well, ako naman, very personal ang basis ko for supporting Lenny. I had observed her up close when we were together in Congress during our first term, when we were neophyte representatives of in the House. And I observed very closely Lenny's style of working. She's very, very diligent, napakasipag. She worked from morning to evening. And she knew what she wanted to do while she was representative. And I admire very much her legislations, especially in the areas of people empowerment, transparency and accountability in governance, and especially her bills on inclusive and participative governance. So these are very important basis for me for supporting VP Lenny.
Well, let's go local, Congressman Fortuno. Explain to us the dynamics there in your district, 1st District, Agusan Norte, so that we can better understand why you're going for Lenny. May suporta ba siya dyan sa inyo? Is it, malawak ba ang suporta niya dyan? Or are you all by your lonesome?
Well, recent developments on the ground have shown that VP Lenny, in the course of the campaign period, has become a rallying and unifying figure for people from different sectors and practically from different walks of life who share the collective aspiration for inclusive and honest and accountable and competent governance. She started with not much support from local political leaders, but there's a very strong sense of volunteerism on the part of those supporting her on the basis of her concrete track record and genuine advocacies for accountable and transparent governance. lahat ito nakikita natin sa mga developments. So, talking about unity, no, I think that VP Levy is the kind of candidate who's been able to build unity from the ground up, which makes it even very strong, no, and stronger than those of the others, because of the foundation upon which that kind of unity rests, no. And I think this will manifest, no, in the days leading towards the elections.
Can you give us a little bit more of an idea, yung mga alignments dyan sa local politics? Who are the other politicians who are for the other presidential candidates?
Well, yung mga bagong developments, no, you would see that only in Mindanao, but also in different parts of the country. While there's this recent survey that has been released only now, I would rather want to see the surveys, that the next surveys, no, that would be more reflective of the impact of more recent developments, no, on the ground. These have been shown by spontaneous and remarkable groundswell that we have seen, not only in the mammoth rallies, but also in the recent declarations of support, no, from local political leaders. And I think, no, all of this will have an impact in the days to come. Yesterday, no, you have Northern Samar, all mayors, no, and the governor and the vice governor and the congressman, no, all declaring support for VP Leni. But before that, you have Misamis Oriental, no, the congresswoman Juliet Uy, and 11 mayors, no, all declaring support for the vice president. And you have about the same day, I think the following day, 15 more mayors from Lanao del Sur declaring support for the vice president. And you have the president of the National Unity Party that was said to have declared support for BBM, but you have the president declaring support for VP Leni. Now, all of these will have impact. Ano, alam natin na magkakaroon ng malaking impact tong mga to dahil we know that local political leaders have strong following in their respective jurisdictions, and they have well-entrenched machineries that will significantly contribute to the already growing voluntarism-driven and people-backed support and initiatives on the ground.
Well, impact, but you have BBM in the Lilo survey, the latest Lilo survey, middle of March, 61%. Leni is 19%. And then everybody else is like a poor third, fourth, and fifth.
Yes, yun nga, ang impact kasi nitong mga to, yung recent declaration support will manifest, no, malalaman natin yan pagkilos na ng kanilang mga makinarya, pagkilos na ng kanilang mga support. These are very recent declarations of support that have been happening almost on a daily basis in the last few days. But of course, the impact of these declarations of support would be seen when the supporters, the following, the machineries, of these political leaders would already work.
Yeah, but can Leni still win against BBM if Isko, Manny, and Ping are still running, or well, still in the running?
What's that again?
Can Leni still win even if all the others are still running or still in contention? Because earlier, we have Lito David here, VP candidate, and I'm sure you're aware that he did make that proposal for VP candidates and the presidential candidates to, for all of them, the rest of them, to unite against BBM and Sara. And that's why we're going to speak to Melvin Matibag in just a bit. And Richard Herdarian also here. Yun ang pinag-uusapan namin kanina.
Well, it's going to be a very welcome development, if all the other candidates rally behind a common candidate, and that should be VP Leni, because she's the one closest to the front runner. But in the event that there's no withdrawals, from the other candidates, I think VP Leni has just to continue. And this is a marathon. We're still in the middle of the campaign period, and so much has been happening on the ground, and we believe that there will be a continuous snowball for VP Leni. And I think although there's little time, but I think it's not impossible for VP Leni to finally make it on the D-Day.
Yun nga lang, sabi nga ni Richard Herdarian dito na if anything should happen, it should happen within March, which just it's ending in 2 days. But anyway, stand by lang, Congressman Fortun. Let's speak now to Melvin Matibag because shortly after the PDP Laban Kusi faction endorsed Bongbong Marcos's candidacy, Senator Bongo revealed that President Duterte and the candidate met in Malacanang. Does this mean a presidential endorsement can't be too far behind? So before I ask you about that, Mr. Matibag, let's talk first about that latest Lilo survey. So you have, 61% BBM. Sure winner na ba yan?
Unless, I think if you look at the 61%, that is something that is difficult to overcome for any candidate.
Yeah, unless...
Yung 61 niya, 61, yung kasunod niya, si Bibi Lenny, is 19. So it's very far. And probably we look at, if you will drill the survey and look at the hard votes, yung hindi na magbabang yung isip, I'm sure mataas din yan, so it's difficult. If we look at the date of the survey, it was done March 15 to 22, and PDP Laban made the announcement of support only on March 22. So yung effect pa nung announcement ng PDP at that time the survey was done, wala pa siya ron. So in the next survey, mas tataas pa sigurado yung numbers ni Senator
So you have
Bongbong
nothing to
Marcos.
worry about, Mr. Matibag, in other words, unless, let's say, what if mag-unite na, mag-unite bigla ang opposition? You have VP Lenny, Isko, Manny, Ping, what if biglang magsama-sama sila? Kahit hindi sila mag-withdraw ng candidacy, endorse lang nila yung isa sa kanila. Are you going to worry then, or it won't matter to you?
There will be an effect, but I don't think that will be enough to steal the election from Senator Bongbong Marcos. After ng endorsement ng PDP, sumunod na yung Nationalista Party, also party na malaki yung base nila. And PDP Laban have a strong ground support. We have more than 7,000 candidates, and 80% of which are incumbent candidates. And as we speak now, a lot of governors already making their formal endorsement of Senator Bongbong Marcos. Si Governor Dax Cua is kanina nagsalita na, nag-send ng message sa press conference namin that the province of Quirino is committed to Senator Bongbong Marcos. Then Zamboanga, Governor Berto Uy already sent his support. So marami talaga eh. Meron talagang mga pumupunta rin kay VP Lenny, pero I don't think that is enough to win an election. Medyo talagang mataas na eh. Yung pagsama ng PDP Laban, yun na yung magbibigay ng ground support sa candidacy.
Okay. Is President Duterte going to endorse BBM? Would you know that for a fact? And if he doesn't, will it matter? If he does, will it matter? Or who cares for an endorsement from the president now?
Ito lang sabihin ko, no? We are PDP Laban is a political party who expose yung democratic participation, so we made consultation. And yung ginawa namin na pag-endorso kay Senator Bongbong Marcos, alam ng lahat ng PDP Laban yan. So yung sabihin, merong mga hindi pumayag, pero at the end of the day, yung majority yung sinusunod dyan. And we are very happy na yun talaga yung ginagawa ng mga local candidates natin. Well, speaking of President Duterte, I'd rather leave it to him na siya yung magsabi kung mag-i-endorso siya. Of course, we are hoping na openly samahan niya yung endorsement ng PDP Laban. But let me say it again, that whatever the party's decision, lahat yan ay pinapaalam sa lahat ng miyembro ng PDP.
Dalawang malaking issue laban sa inyong kandidato. Number one, itong estate taxes, unpaid estate taxes. And number two, itong, yung sinasabi nila, the party, quote unquote, the party that was formed to fight against a dictator, now endorsing his son. You don't care, right, about those issues. It doesn't matter because, the survey showed you number one ang kandidato niyo.
First, the issue of PDP Laban. Well, hindi naman yata din exacto when you say that PDP Laban is formed to fight the dictator. Because if that is only the purpose, sabi nga dyan, functions officials, tapos na yon dahil wala naman tayong dictator na nilalabanan ngayon eh. And in fact, in 2016, PDP Laban supported PRRD. And alam naman nila si PRRD is very dependent. Si PRRD is 3-generation PDP Laban yan. So sila talaga isa sa original yan. Meron pong mga principles sa PDP Laban na sinusunod at hindi naman lang yung sasabihin labanan yung dictator.
Okay.
And
in other words, you've moved on.
Magandang tingnan ngayon, you are fighting the Marcoses at that time, pero ngayon, you see the Marcoses embracing what PDP Laban is fighting for, kung ano yung mga pinaglalaban. So, hindi naman po kasi pag-aari ng isang pamilya o ng isang tao ang PDP Laban. Ang PDP Laban is a party who is democratic. Meron pong decision-making yan, and that is ruled by the majority. And yan po yung ginagawa namin.
All right.
As to the issue po of excise tax, wala yan. I know na ang yung issue ng excise tax is still pending with the court. So wala pa pong finality yan. And even if there's a finality, ang liability po ng estate tax is not addressed to the individual or the administrator. The estate tax is the responsibility of the estate. Ipag tinignan niyo po yung batas, meron pong separate legal personality bawat isa dyan. So I'd rather leave it to the authority, to the court, how they will decide on it. And not to mention na more than 10 years na po yan. I don't know if prescription already set in.
But isn't BBM the co-administrator of the estate of his father?
Well, ang sinasabi ko nga po, ang estate tax, ang liability po ng estate tax belongs to the estate. So, not to mention that the case is still pending with the court. And sabi ko nga, sa batas po, meron po mga tinatawag na prescriptive period dyan eh. So if it's over 10 years, I think that is a question of law that I'd rather leave it to the expert, to the authority, and that is the court to decide on.
But BBM is co-administrator of his father's estate, correct?
Well, on the record,
Yes.
kung yung po yung lumalabas yung estate po na yan is kung siya ay co-administrator, it doesn't necessarily follow that the administrator is the one liable. And if there's a court order which is final, that is the time that you execute it. But from what I know, the case still pending in the court, so I'd rather leave it to the court kung ano po yung decision.
All right. Mr. Melvin Matibag of PDP Laban and Kong Lawrence Fortun, I hope you can stay to the end of the show. You're still going to be joining us via Zoom to end the show. More from our guests when we return. This is Politics as Usual. We're in our final stretch. This is Politics as Usual. Our guests still join us via Zoom. Melvin Matibag and Lawrence Fortun and former Secretary Renato de Villa. Richard Hedarian and Lito David still here in the studio. Just to wrap things up a bit, your thoughts muna, Richard, and everything that you've heard from Lawrence Fortun, Melvin Matibag, Rene de Villa. Ang dami na naman pinag-usapan, but doesn't necessarily mean there's maraming nangyayari, ano? And then let's combine that with, all these endorsements that have come out from the different governors, mayors, etc., for either Lenny or BBM, etc.
Well, I mean, first of all, ito yung mga tinuturo sa university, classic collective action problem. Each party have an interest to protect. And for some of them, it's not only about these elections, it's about what's going to happen afterwards. No? Kahit matalo ko, but if I also alienate my base, then what's going to be my political future, right? For others, they're thinking about potentially cutting the deal with the victor, no? So this is the problem, collective action problem, because each of these parties, candidates have their own interests. The other thing that we have to keep in mind also is the second preference numbers. Both Lacson and Isko have relatively high second preference numbers. So they're still hoping na kung may mangyayaring bandwagoning, reverse bandwagoning, etc., it will actually benefit them, right? Rather than other candidates. Which brings me to the other point. If you want to make this race actually more competitive, actually you would want people like Isko actually to pick up, for instance. Because if you look at Isko, he has very high second preference and he has very high overlap with Bongbong Marcos, not with Lenny. So realistically, the only way this race can be a little bit closer among 2 or 3 candidates is if Isko picks up at the expense of BBM. Because if Isko withdraws, it's very possible that BBM picks up more numbers than Lenny. So there's also that issue of sino magbe-benefit in terms of if some of the candidates get out. And the last thing I want to also emphasize here, of course, as I said, the paradox is among the surveys are suggesting my runaway winner. And yet, if you look at on the ground, you see a fragmentation in the administration team for that matter. If you look at Mindanao, so there are 2 major blocks we have to look at. One is the Mindanao block, which is quite coherent. Nakita natin in 2019. And then you have millions of new Generation Z voters, right, who are coming in, who may be a bit more soft in terms of their hierarchy of choices. Those 2 could still swing. That's why there could be some fluidity here. But will it necessarily swing in favor of the opposition against the administration? That's a big question. But one thing I want to emphasize here is this. Mukhang walang problema in terms of supporting Sara. I think Mindanao is solidly behind Sara. The openness is on the presidential candidate. Because I think when you look at the Solid South, they close the ranks on the national level when one of them is involved. But Bongbong Marcos is not from Mindanao. And we know the Marcos dictatorship had a very negative history in Mindanao. And that is why I'm not surprised some folks from Cagayan, some folks from Lanao, etc., are more comfortable with the Leni presidential candidate rather than the Bongbong Marcos candidate. But at the same time, maybe okay still with Sara Duterte as being the vice presidential candidate. So I think these are the things that we have to keep in mind. Yeah.
What do you think pala of these, yung mga Leni, all those pink rallies that were happening in different areas, is that good for the
it
vote?
creates
Magandang
enthusiasm.
optics,
Yes,
but-
it creates enthusiasm.
Yeah.
It projects power. It projects momentum. I think mahalaga yan dun sa mga hindi pa masyadong clear, dun sa gusto nilang, let's call them the bandwagoners or soft voters. I think
Or
this is...
thinking of Leni as their second choice.
Yes,
and
second
then-
choice,
okay.
etc. And honestly, pagdating sa surveys, I'm not very clear the hierarchies are that clear in a sense that talagang second choice nila, second choice nila. I think the hierarchy is a little bit more fluid.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, we have to be clear. Each camp on the opposite sides have a never the other candidates. There's like never Marcos and never Leni. And that's why I'm saying, if you're Isko or Lacson to a lesser degree, you would still hope that your high second preference could still pick up. And in this case, mostly at the expense of the front runner. So that's something we're not talking about because we're assuming there's only two sides of this race, when there are other sides who still can pick up because of high second preference numbers.
We have the last 6 minutes of the show. We're going to get final words first from everyone. Let's begin with Secretary Rene De Villa, Chairman Emeritus of Partido Reforma. Secretary De Villa.
I just find the discussions very interesting. As you know, I am just an observer of the whole situation now, even if I am totally supportive of Ping Lacson. So it's a good discussion, and I congratulate you for it.
Well, I have good guests, including you, sir. Thank you, Secretary De Villa. Congressman Lawrence Fortun.
Well, I find genuine hope in the recent declarations of support from local political leaders, despite the numbers. That would only mean that these recent declarations of support are not results of, declarations of support for political expediency, but rather these are cases of local political leaders heeding their good conscience, and putting the interest of the country first. And since that is the strong basis for these declarations of support, I expect that there would be a continuous declaration of support also from other political leaders around the country. And we would notice later the snowball of support for real reforms. So malayo pa ito at kami naniniwala na tutuloy-tuloy ito. And there will be more leaders that will be mastering the resolve to be on the right side of history, especially in these 2022 elections.
Thank you, Congressman Fortun. Mr. Melvin Matibag of PDP Laban, sir.
Well, just like what Congressman Fortun said, the support of PDP Laban to Senator Bongbong Marcos is not for political exigency, but also it's a product of a long deliberation. And when Senator Bongbong Marcos agreed to carry the 11-point agenda of PDP Laban, that seals the deal. So yun talaga yung naging basis natin dito. We're looking for somebody who will continue and push the development and the projects that started with President Duterte. So doon naman talaga yung tinignan. And din yung tinitingnan ng mga local leaders natin. Kaya naman yung local leaders ng PDP Laban ay buong suporta sa tandem ni Senator Bongbong Marcos at Mayor Sara Duterte. And thank you very much for having me on your show, Ma'am Pia.
Melvin Matibag, Secretary General, PDP Laban, Cusi Faction. Tingnan natin kung ano magiging decision ng COMELEC. Baka naman lumabas yan eve of the elections. Anyway, okay, final words now from Lito David, VP candidate.
Naniniwala ako, Pia, na hindi pa tapos ito. Maraming puwersa pa yung gagalaw. Kung magkakausap-usap lang, kaya pantalunin si Bongbong at saka si Sara. Hindi naman to kumbaga matatapos lang sa ganyan. kung gagalaw yung lahat ng simbahan, for example, kaya pa. Yun yung aking hope. Kaya nga, mas maaga ko nang sinabi yung proposal, hindi na ako nagpatumpik-tumpik pa. Kasi kung April ko pa sasabihin yan, totally wala na. Inagahan ko na nga kasi nakita ko na yung numero So, importante na pag-aralan maigi at mag-usap-usap na tayong lahat. Let's do the noble act. The noble act.
Chapter of democratic struggle in the country. Kaya nga, in that sense, hindi tapos ang laban, and I don't think it will ever end in that sense. So I think that's the other thing that I want to emphasize here. That's why it's not only about winning and losing, it's about how you fight the good fight and what precedents you set for the next generation. And as a millennial, down the road, we hope there'll be a next generation of leaders down the road. We're watching what our the adults in the room are doing, right? Para you set a good precedent. I'm trying to be politically correct. How can I put it? The adults in the room, right? Pinapanood namin kayo. And the Gen Zs who are the first time going to join, they want to see also a good fight, a noble fight by all sides, no? So for me, in that sense, hindi tapos ang laban. And March is not the end point of everything.
And let's work for runoff elections. No? Or,
And that has been my advocacy.
Some form that will not allow 10 candidates running for president and 9 for
Or
VP.
perhaps we have to shift na to a parliamentary form. So we have no need
Which
for
will
that.
be the priority of the next ad. And that's what I'm saying. If the margin is very big for the victor, maging
Then
mas
he can-
madali
then
sa
it'll be
kanya.
easier for him or
Exactly.
her,
So
yeah.
that's why I'm saying margin matters. If the winner is a 70% guy, he can probably change the constitution in the first 2 years.
Yeah. Okay, natatakot na yung mga producers kasi baka mag-OT tayo. Dahil iba na yung pinag-uusapan natin. Parliamentary. But anyway, di bale, magpa-part 2 tayo, babalik naman kayo. And Richard, I'll see you on election day, of course, May 9, that evening. So, thank you to our guests. Earlier, Secretary Rene De Villa of Partido Reforma, Chairman Emeritus, Melvin Matibag, PTP Laban Cusi Faction, Congressman Lawrence Fortun, Agusan Norte, 1st District, who is with Lenny Robredo, VP candidate Nito David, who's made that proposal for a united front against BBM and Sara, and Richard Haydarian, an analyst. Ang tagal, no? Before we saw you again. So welcome back to CNN Philippines. Thank you so much for being here. We've been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or at a family reunion.